Good morning, my dear student. Here I am going to discuss one new topic, that is parathyroid hormone. Parathyroid hormone is also known as calcitropic hormone. Why it is known as calcitropic hormone? Because it is directly related with the calcium metabolism and the level of calcium in the blood. The functional anatomy of the parathyroid gland. There are two pairs of a small endocrine gland closely applied to the back of thyroid gland. Normally there are 4 parathyroid glands, but they are not more than that. Rarely they can be 6 or even 8. Each gland is slightly oval in shape and is about the size of a split pea, measuring 6 into 4 into 2 millimeters. As far as the histological structure is concerned, there are two types of the cells present in this gland, in this parathyroid gland, parathyroid gland. The one is chief cells, another one is oxyphil cells. The chief cells is also called principal cells. It is small round cells having a granular cytoplasm and vesicular nuclei. The chief cells secrete the PTH or parathormone. The oxyphil cells, much larger than the chief cells and contain granules, stain strongly with the acidic dye. Cells first appear at puberty and their function is still not clear. Structure, synthesis and the function of parathormone. The parathormone is a single chain of polypeptide. So it's a polypeptide hormone containing 84 amino acids and molecular weight of 95,000. Synthesized from a precursor molecule called pre-pro-PTH containing 115 amino acids, and this pre-pro-PTH is degraded into pro-PTH, and again this pro-PTH is finally converted into the PTH. The secretion released from the chief cells by the exocytosis, they take place in the response to decrease in the plasma ionized calcium concentration. So it is very important point that the synthesis of this parathormone is mainly regulated by the ionized calcium present in the plasma. The regulation of PTH secretion, the role of ionized calcium, the first one which is play very major role. The second is the role of serum magnesium concentration. Third is the role of plasma phosphate concentration. And the fourth one is the role of 125 dihydroxycholecalciferol. Maximum secretion occurs when the plasma ionized calcium level falls below 3.5 milligram percentage. So it is not depends on the total calcium concentration, but it depends on the ionized calcium level, which is mainly responsible for the regulation of the parathormone secretion. Role of serum magnesium concentration, here it is very unique. The mild decrease in serum magnesium concentration stimulate PTH secretion, where the severe decrease in the serum magnesium ion concentration inhibits the PTH secretion. And the role of plasma phosphate concentration, a rise in plasma concentration of phosphate causes an immediate fall in the ionized calcium concentration, which in turn stimulate the PTH secretion. So it's an indirect effect that the phosphates decreases immediate decrease in the fall in ionized calcium concentration, which in turn stimulate PTH secretion. So it's indirectly responsible for the parathormone secretion. Role of Role of vitamin D, it inhibits the transcription of the PTH gene and decreases the parathormone secretion. The plasma half-life degradation of and the parathormone level. The plasma level of parathormone is about 130 picogram per ml. Half-life of parathormone in plasma is very short, that is 5 to 8 minutes. And what is the fate of this parathormone? The parathormone degradation takes place in the liver predominantly by the splitting. Mechanism and action of parathormone. The parathormone binds to the membrane receptor protein in the target cell. It activates the adenyl cyclase to liberate the cyclic AMP. This cyclic AMP in turn increases intracellular calcium that promotes the phosphorylation of proteins. So it is in this way the parathormone acts. The action of the parathormone, the prime function of the parathormone is to elevate calcium concentration and to decrease the plasma phosphate. The three major target organ on which it acts directly on the bone, kidney, and indirectly on the GI tract. Action of the parathormone on the bone. There are two phases: the rapid phases of demineralization and the slow phases of demineralization. The rapid phase of demineralization is also called osteocytic osteolysis. In this process, the calcium is transferred from the bone canalicular fluid into the osteocytes and then into the extracellular fluid. The slow phase of demineralization, this effect requires several days of exposure of parathormone, and here the parathormone stimulates formation of new osteoclasts from the osteoprogenitor cells and causes activation of osteoclasts already present in the bone to initiate the process of bone resorption, in which both calcium and phosphate are released from the bone are transferred to the extracellular fluid. So in this way, the actions on the action of parathormone on the bone is a rapid phase of demineralization and the slow phase of demineralization. The action on kidney, what are the effects of the parathormone on the kidney? Increases in the calcium reabsorption, inhibition of phosphate reabsorption in the proximal tubule, inhibition of reabsorption of sodium and bicarbonate in the proximal tubules, and stimulation of sodium hydrogen exchange, stimulation of reabsorption of magnesium by the renal tubule, and stimulation of synthesis of 125 dihydroxycholecalciferol. So these are the effects of the parathormone on the kidney. Action on the intestine, the parathormone greatly enhanced both calcium and phosphate absorption from the intestine. It is an indirect process by increasing the synthesis of 125 dihydroxycholecalciferol in the kidney. Applied aspects. Some of the important applied aspects are the one is hyperparathyroidism, hypoparathyroidism, and metabolic bone disease. The hyperparathyroidism and hypercalcemia, the primary hyperparathyroidism, primary hyperparathyroidism occurs in the one is the single autonomous parathyroid adenoma, the one main cause. The second one is parathyroid carcinoma. What are the clinico-biochemical features of this primary hyperparathyroidism? The typical manifestations are the hypercalcemia, hypophosphatemia, hypercalciuria, and the renal calculi. So these are the major manifestations of the primary hyperparathyroidism, in which the calcium level, there is an increased calcium level, decreased phosphate level, and due to increased calcium level there is an increased calcium present in urine, and the increased presence of calcium in urine that leads to the renal calculi. The feature of bone disease are rarely seen in the this seen in the primary hyperparathyroidism. Hypercalcemia may produce muscle weakness, lethargy, and constipation. This is very important to note, that the hypercalcemia causes the muscle weakness, lethargy, and constipation. This is very important. The the secondary is typically seen in the slowly developing renal features. In this condition, the excessive parathormone secretions occur secondary to the persistent hypocalcemia, which causes continued stimulation of parathyroid gland. So it is very important that it is not at the primary thing, but it's a secondary thing. And what is the secondary thing? The secondary thing is the persistent hypocalcemia, and the persistent hypocalcemia is one of the important pictures in the slowly developing, not slowly developing, any renal failure. That this is the hypocalcemia is a picture, and this is the most important disease in which the secondary hyperparathyroidism happens. So what is the clinical biochemical picture? The main characteristic picture is involvement of bones. Areas of osteoclastic hyperactivity and rampant bone resorptions are present next to the area of excessive and disorganized trabecular bone formation. Bone pains, actually it is wrongly written here, the bone pairs, not bone pains. The fractures and the deformity may result. So there is a very important finding that the in any kind of renal failure, the most of the CKD, not the acute renal failure, but most of the CKD, the chronic kidney disease, the person will have a picture of hypocalcemia, and at the same time the bones are weak, that bone pains are there, the chances of fracture are there, and any kind of bone deformity may takes place due to this secondary hyperparathyroidism. Hypercalcemia, the causes are the two, the causes can be divided into two groups. What are the two groups? The one where the hypercalcemia with raised PTH level or the parathormone level, and the second group is the hypercalcemia with undetectable parathormone level. So what are this? The one is raised PTH, the one conditions where the one is primary hyperparathyroidism, where I discussed the cause of primary hyperparathyroidism. The second one is second most important, the chronic renal failure or the CKD. In the second group, the low or undetectable PTH level with hypercalcemia, the one is uh, uh, the one is the hypercalcemia of this wrongly wrongly written here. The one is hypercalcemia due of malignancy. The second one is multiple myeloma, sarcoidosis, hyperthyroidism, thiazide diuretics, and milk alkali syndrome. So these are the conditions where the hypercalcemia is present, but the parathormone level is undetectable. So the hypercalcemia is not due to the parathormone excess secretion of parathormone, but it is due to the another cause which is causing the hypercalcemia without increase in the parathormone level. Understand? So these are the hypercalcemia of malignancy where the parathormone have no role. Multiple myeloma is another malignant conditions where the parathormone have no role. Then hyperthyroidism is another conditions where the hypercalcemia can takes place. Sarcoidosis and another conditions where the then thiazide diuretics, which is the side effects of this thiazide diuretics, is hypercalcemia, and the milk alkali syndrome. So I'm not going to detail what is milk alkali syndrome here. Okay. The hypoparathyroidism has been classified into two main groups: the true hypoparathyroidism and the pseudo hypoparathyroidism. True in the true hypoparathyroidism, the true hypoparathyroidism is deficient production of parathormone due to heritable or acquired cause. Due to heritable or acquired cause, depending upon the cause, the true hypoparathyroidism can be, one is post-ablative or the post-operative hypoparathyroidism, and the second one is infantile hypoparathyroidism. Okay, the infantile can be transient or persistent infantile, so I'm not going to detail. The second or maybe of the idiopathic hypoparathyroidism as another cause. The pseudo hypoparathyroidism, this is a congenital conditions in which the parathormone production is normal, but the target tissue is resistant to its effects. Understand? So here basically the parathormone level is normal, their hormone level is normal, but the hormone is not acting on the target tissue. So hormone is not deficient, but the target tissue is not responding to the hormone. So this is the problem. Okay. Then true hypoparathyroidism, depending on the case, true hypoparathyroidism can be that the post-ablative or post-operative, infantile, and idiopathic. I discussed earlier. This Pseudo, I already discussed the congenital condition in which the PTH production is normal but the target tissue are resistant to its effects. It may happen due to defects lying in the parathyroid receptor, or there may be a post-receptor defect. Characteristic feature of hypoparathyroidism is the two. One is hypocalcemia and the second one is hyperphosphatemia. So the hypocalcemia, the total serum calcium level may be decreased by 4 to 8%, and an hyperphosphatemia, an increase in serum inorganic phosphate level 6 to 16%. Tetany. Tetany refers to a clinical conditions resulting from an increased neuromuscular activity due to the cause are the what are the causes of tetany? The causes of tetany is one is hypercalcemia, the second one is hypomagnesemia, and the third one is alkalosis. So in hypocalcemia, what happens? Why there is a hypocalcemia causes tetany? It's a very conceptual question which is repeatedly asked by some examiners in Viva. What happens here? The extracellular calcium plays a very important role in the membrane integrity and excitability. Thus, when the concentration of ionic calcium is reduced to 50% of the normal in the extracellular fluid, the cell membrane of neuron become more permeable, resulting in series of action potential. Thus, hypocalcemia is the most common cause of increased neuromuscular irritability leading to tetany. So this is very important. And then the hypomagnesemia, the also cause tetany because the magnesium ions are also associated with neuromuscular irritability. And in alkalosis, which reduces ionic calcium, can also cause produce tetany. Uh, the clinical features in children's and adult patients are different. In children, here the carpopedal spasm, laryngeal stridor, convulsion, and some visceral features. In adult patient, paresthesia, it is wrongly written here, panesthesia, or it is a paresthesia. Then the carpopedal spasm and laryngeal stridor. The carpopedal spasm is very unique uh, posture of hands and the legs due to hypocalcemia, which I don't insert the picture of carpopedal spasm, but whenever you can find the picture of carpopedal spasm uh, on the different on the net, you can find the picture of carpopedal spasm, and that in this way you can understand that what is the characteristic posture which is developed due to the hypocalcemia. So what is latent tetany? It is also called a subclinical tetany, in which the above described typical picture and signs are absent. It can be unmasked by the following test, that is Trogius sign and the Kostek sign. The Trogius sign is Trousseau's sign, is basically pronounced as is a Trousseau's sign. By occluding the blood supply to the limb for about 3 minutes by inflation of a sphygmomanometer curve above the systolic blood pressure level, produces a characteristic carpal spasm or pedal spasm depending on the limb tested. So, in the carpal spasm produced by occluding the blood supply, by how you occlude the blood supply, but when you apply a sphygmomanometer cuff to the arm, and when you increase the blood pressure level more than the systolic blood pressure, and it remained for the about 3 minutes after inflation. If there is a the subclinical hypocalcemia, or if there is a latent tetany is there, then the carpal spasm produced after doing this. So this is known as Trousseau's sign. The second one is Kostek sign, refers to the twitching of facial muscle produced by tapping the facial nerve at the angle of jaw. This occurs due to increased excitability of nerve to the mechanical stimulation. Okay. Thank you.